resign from being the pastor's wife and just be involved in children's ministry.
We have an opening.
I will not deny. It's wonderful. I'm kind of there. I mean, I'm not resigning from pastors. That's not what I meant. I meant with lead. I'm with them all the time, so I don't know that I want to be in children's ministry.
It's a joke, people.
It's a joke.
It's a joke.
Okay, well, we're so glad you're here today because Lifetalks tackles real, relevant, and practical topics with biblical teaching and engaging discussion, and we want that discussion today. So please send in your questions, your comments to lifetalks@thelifewaychurch.net. We're excited to have the Hickeys here with us today and our children's ministry directors. So this is going to be a great day. We know that children's ministry is extremely important to a church, but more importantly, it's the impact on the lives of the children it affects. Many studies have been conducted demonstrating that 2/3 of people surveyed say their salvation experience occurred before the age of 18. How many in here, your salvation experience occurred before you were 18? Yeah, I would say maybe even more than 2/3. For good reason, Jesus said that we must come as little children, and such is the kingdom of God. Today, we want to look back at this week's VBS Victories, the challenges of children's ministry in 2022, and how we can be more proactive in the spiritual formation of our children. Important topics. So we're here with Pastor, and again, as I said, Lifeway Children's Ministry Directors, Joe and Rebecca Hickey. So let's jump in.
Well, this is a topic that I think it's always been important. Children's ministry is always has been important, but I believe today, in the day in which we live, I believe that children's ministry is, even more vital. And it's obviously when we quote statistics like, for example, 2/3 of all people surveyed said that their salvation experience occurred before the age of 18, and I think that's the fact that you see families that are in church and their children are engaged in church, and they see, so that makes sense. I think that a highly missional-minded church is going to see that, but I think also we're going to see a lot of adults being saved as well. But even in a highly missional church, let's say, for example, you have a family, and a family comes to God. And I've seen it over and over again that a family comes to God and they have 2 children, and they start coming to church or whatever, and the children go to Sunday school. Well, kids are often less guarded, they're more open, which is going to obviously lead me into why children's ministry is so important. But children are often less guarded, and so it's interesting if you think about it. We didn't input this about 2/3 of children's, or 2/3 of people experience salvation as children. We didn't actually put that in there as a statistic of the importance of children's ministry in salvation, but actually to demonstrate that it's often children that are most open. We know they're most impressionable. We know that. So a lot of times what happens is we see new families start coming, they start hanging around, and then their children go to Sunday school, and I want to talk about, even the challenges of having a split session like we do now, 9:45 and 11, where sometimes parents see that as an opportunity to sleep in a little extra on Sunday and then just bring their kids to the 11 o'clock service, which is a tragedy and travesty. I hope you're watching right now.
Preach.
No, for real, it really is. It's like, we'll just sleep in. We'll take the kids to to regular church, and that's just plain silliness. But anyway, but I think that it's important for us to think about how that sometimes these families come in, their kids go to children's ministry, and then and they just open up. They listen to the stories. They open up their heart. They open up their life, and the next thing you know, the kids are feeling the Lord. And the parents who sometimes are like, we're gonna keep our guard up a little bit here, and just kind of check things out. And then all of a sudden we find that it's often children who say to their parents, are we going to Sunday school? Are we going to church? Are we going to, And so I don't know if you've seen that, if you've experienced that. Let's talk to that for just a moment. Let's just talk about the openness of children and how sometimes God uses children to get to the hearts of their parents. Let's talk about that, and then we'll flow from that and just keep going.
Yeah, so, and I didn't bring it with me, but I saw a survey here recently that said that over 60% of new, and this is a huge study and not necessarily in the apostolic movement, but over 60% of recent salvation experiences have come as a result of a child coming into church for a parent. So it's generally led by a child that's either invited to Sunday school or a parent that's trying to find Sunday school or some sort of church experience for their child. That's really important for them to be able to have those kind of connections. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
I would just say, as a mom, especially, like, if my kids aren't happy and it's not making a difference for my children, then I wouldn't go back. So.
See, that's, and don't you think that, I think there's something really huge about that. Mm-hmm. I think that, the question would be, to me, if an adult is sort of experiencing challenges in life, or an adult is feeling maybe a lack of fulfillment in life or whatever, that they would begin to seek for God, that they would begin to say, you know what, I'm going to get an experience with God. I'm going to start reading my Bible. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday who is not, he was explaining to me seeking God within the context of the challenges of some of his current life struggles. And I think that, you look at it and you say, well, you as an adult should lead into seeking after God. But it's funny, and I think what you bring up, it brings in a very, very valuable and important point, is that oftentimes what happens is parents see their children like either struggling, or they see their children needing something, or they're very sensitive to that, and parents will make concessions and allowances and even commitments and all of those things for their children, don't they?
That is so true, and it is. How many times have we seen, like you just said, parents will make a decision on a church or based on their children? I remember when we first moved here, I saw a couple that I didn't know them at the time, and we were at Young's Dairy, and they knew who we were, and I went up and talked to them, but I kind of said hello to the parents, but I took the time with the kids, and the next week they were at Lifeway, and she said, the impact you made on us because of how you treated our children. And that is a huge thing. I know kids make a big difference. I know this morning, Sister Haltom was calling home to see if they were coming to church today because they've had a lot of sickness in their house this week. And was it Warren? Tears. Both of them. Tears that they were not coming to church today. So upset. But it's true. When your kids love it and your kids want to be there, boy, it's going to change how you view church, for sure.
It's very true.
I was just going to say, I think it's harder, like adults, when we are in a new environment, we're easily guarded, and it's harder for us to make new friends, and kids are just so open. So if they're having fun and enjoying themselves and feeling Jesus and telling their parents that, it just makes a big difference.
What's interesting is the Bible, and you've both been involved in forms of ministry through your family. Your parents are both ministry. Your dad and mom have been involved in children's ministry for many, many years while you were young and so on. And what's interesting is, and we hear these stories, right? The Bible said God has put eternity in our hearts. That's so beautiful, right? That God puts eternity in our hearts. And I love the stories where children ask their parents, like that don't go to church at all. And the children ask their parents questions and say, who is Jesus? Or who is God? And they're like, where did that question come from? Like, and parents, of course, sometimes who don't have any church background whatsoever are like, let's Google it, or whatever. And I can remember, like, we didn't go to church. My mom was obviously my mom was raised as a pastor's daughter, but we didn't go to church growing up at all. But my brother and I would get up in the morning. This is why this is so important. This is why this is touches my heart so much, because my brother and I would get up in the morning, and we would get our own selves dressed in the morning, like when we were 8, 9, 10 years old, and through our backyard. So where we lived. So like, like these old school towns where you had your street and then had an alley between the streets. So the back of our house, across the alley and catty corner, was a church. And so that's where we went to VBS, and that's where we went to church. And, we didn't choose the church because of theology, and we didn't choose the church. We just chose the church because they said, they would say, Kenny and Chris, if you'll get here by Sunday school time, we'll let you ring the bell. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And then we got to ring the bell, and they had the big bell. It was like, dong, dong.
Oh, you mean like the big bell?
The big bell.
Oh, we didn't have a big bell.
Yeah. We rang the bell because when the bell starts ringing, it's like, hey, all you people, hurry up and get to church. It was like, that's awesome. The bell starts ringing and whatever. And they're like, they let us ring the bell. And so I would ring the bell, and we figured out if I rang the bell, I would ring the bell and get it moving. And then my brother, he was really little, and he would grab a hold of the bell and we'd kind of lift him off the ground a little bit. It was so awesome. He was like 8 or 7. But anyway, we would get up in the morning and we'd leave a note. Hey, Mom and Dad, just want to let you know we went to church. And I wonder sometimes if that had an effect on my parents. Like our kids are getting up, putting their own clothes on, without breakfast or anything, and going to church. And there was a hunger for God. I remember one time when I was a kid, my brother and I decided that we were going to stay up late at night. And I'm telling you right now, I must have been maybe 9. Smarty drawers. I may have been 9. There's a running joke in our family. My brother and I remember memories back to like 2 years old and stuff like that. And so my wife and my brother's wife kind of make fun. It's like, what were you? Were you just out of diapers when that happened? It's like, so anyway, we would, we decided, I was maybe 9, my brother was maybe 5. And we decided that we were going to stay up after we went to bed, let our parents go to bed, and we would get a flashlight, and we were going to read the Bible together. At like 9 and 4 years old, we had bunk beds, and he'd get in the bottom bunk, I was in the bottom, he's in the top bunk, and at 9 and 4 years old, and we would read the Bible. We had like one of those little white, like award Bibles or something, and we probably got it at VBS, and they gave us a Jesus bookmark. There's a picture of Jesus on one side and a picture of the 10 Commandments on the other side. And I remember one night, my brother said to me, he said, I'm scared, right? And I said, what are you scared for? And he said, I don't know, I'm just scared. And I said, well, come get in the bunk with me. And at 9 years old, something in my heart said, take out that Jesus bookmark. And I leaned the picture of Jesus up against our little radio that sat on our TV tray. That was our nightstand in the little mobile home we lived in. And I put the bookmark, the Jesus bookmark. And I said, all right, Chris, here, get in the bunk with me, and Jesus will watch us through the night. With zero church background. And it just causes me to say there has to be children out there that are thinking about God. They're pondering God questions. They're they're asking things about God. And so not only do we need to be able to give them good answers and but we need to be able to find them. And we need to be able to say, God, we need to pray and say, God, let those children start asking their parents questions that they don't know how to answer. And start looking for answers. And then lead us to them, lead them here, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I don't want to rabbit trail you too far here, but the one big thing that shows
We
too.
We do that around here.
Okay. But the one big thing that shows too is that the faith that a child has in Jesus' power to help us in our current situation is so much different than an adult that's in their 40s or 50s and what God could do for them if they're unchurched people. So a parent of a child, but we see the kids that will come in and ask for prayer for all sorts of stuff, everything from a dead cat to we had one this week, that a little girl that her 19-month-old sister has had a temperature of over 103 degrees for like a week, and they've been in the hospital and they couldn't get it down, and and this girl Gracie was only she was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and she believes that God can heal her sister. And then we had a couple of other little girls gather around that were in her crew, and they all prayed for her too. And the ability to believe that God can make an impact. And in our lives, I've seen God do so much crazy stuff. I have no doubt that God can take care of that situation and miraculous healing right away. But when you look at a parent of one of those kids that's not in church, your glasses become tinted as you become tainted by all the things that have happened in your life. And it's so easy to say, well, we'll just keep going to the doctor and the doctors will figure it out. But this child believes that Jesus is the answer, and that's what's going to take care of it, and that's what's going to, and obviously that's what we believe. But
and you didn't do like a Bible study about healing,
no.
You just said we're going to pray for something, and
Yep.
and is that crazy that we'll pray for Jesus for my 19-year-old sister or whatever. And then you see that, don't you? You see that in your.
And a lot of I know you heard them yell a few times, but the thing this week was trust Jesus, and yeah, it was so cool to see that she put her sister, like she got her a prayer cloth and the whole deal, and we're trusting Jesus that Jesus is going to be the answer to that situation.
That's so cool. Well, let's lead right into some of our questions, because talking about Vacation Bible School, and sometimes the work is incredibly long and difficult that you put into VBS, but just listening to him talk and listening to that story, the impact, oh my goodness, we have no idea. And we may not know right now. Look how long it took. But, he was in high school when he got into church, but those moments were so important. So tell us, how much time does it take to get ready for a week of Vacation Bible School?
I think this one's for me.
Well, I spent lots of minutes.
Comforting your
Lots
wife.
of minutes and a few Kleenexes to my wife.
We're still in recover mode right now. So we try to start planning about 6 months ahead of time of what we're going to do. So this year we were a little bit behind. It was about 4 months before we finally decided on the VBS that we wanted to do. Which is a big deal. Yes, 4 months is a crunch. So really the big thing is building your team. So that's so important to have good, faithful staff on the team that will help you out. And so we had a meeting and kind of told them our vision for VBS and what it was. And so we built our team, and then they kind of take it off from there, and we add crew leaders. It's a whole process.
Wow, so yeah, that's what I was going to say. So tell us about your set. It was so who saw the set last week? Oh,
yeah.
Amazing.
It was
all
super
through the
good.
church.
Yeah.
But this was incredible.
So that was the Krauses. Tim is our local handyman here in the church for the set design stuff. So if anyone ever needs something built, just ask Tim. He loves to do it, especially if you have something that needs to be built out of foam. He's super good at it.
Yeah, he has lots of time on his hands too.
So much time. But yeah, that just, we get the people together to get it done, and thankfully, really the one kind of cool thing this year too is we had to pick up a bunch of 8-foot sheets of foam, and I thought that we'd be able to fit it in our van, and no, that didn't work. And our next door neighbor saw us struggling with some stuff, actually with the one big the ticket sign that I built outside. He saw me struggling with it to fit it in my van one day. He's like, Joe, if you ever need to borrow my truck, it's right there and nobody uses it. And I mean, so super cool. I mean, just stuff like that happens. But it comes down to there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built, but there's a lot of prep that needs to be done from everybody else too. So all the individual station leaders, so we had 4 stations throughout the week. So all those people have to get prepared for all the kids that are in there, and each crew or each station had 10 to 15 kids in there at a time in each breakout session. So we had the imagination station. They do a craft and build some things, and then that's the Lormans and different versions of the Lormans did that this week, so they did a fantastic job. And that was the fun one, because whenever I was standing in the hallway with somebody different, the kids would be starting their activity in there, and the Lormans had them, part of the activity was they had to bang on the table. So everybody's like, oh my gosh, is the church falling down? No, it's just the Lormans working on their activities. So they did that, and then we had Bible story, which was Paul and Angela Preiser. And man, they did an awesome job. I mean, super good job. I went in there on Thursday night, and so the big cross that fell on the stage on Friday night, they had it in their class on Thursday night, and it had Jesus on it, and then they had these little Velcro strips, and the kids wrote their names on a little heart and then put it on the cross. And then so I walked in there on Thursday night, and there's all the kids praying with their crews, and kids streaming tears down their faces, and just super powerful week in that one session. So that was really good. And then Paul loves to build stuff too, so he built a lot of different things for their group. Then we had the DeBoards did games, and they said they would love to do that every year. They did such a great job.
And they braved the 90-degree weather outside.
Yeah.
That was an outside.
And just an example of how awesome our station leaders are is they went and bought popsicles and had popsicles. They left their van on, put a cooler in there, and had stuff for the kids through every station.
Yeah.
So we appreciate them.
Yeah.
It was a snack station?
Yeah, and then John and Autumn Preiser there was a video that they do every year, and then the snack that went along with that too. So, and then Sandra helped them out, and she did a great job filling in on Friday night for them too. So, yeah, really, really good cruise. And then obviously you had the big pieces. So we had Austin that was Cam Track, and he really came into his own at the end of the week. And I told him that he needs to audition for Dixie Stampede next time they have an opening. The Chicken Rider, yeah. So he did a great job. But yeah, there's so many different people that are involved in this. So I think all in, the total number of volunteers is probably close to 30-ish?
That sounds about right.
25 or 30 different volunteers.
How many, hundreds of hours, cumulative, all their time,
I can't even tell you how many hours. We probably started a month ahead of time just with building things, painting things, and towards the last couple of weeks, we were here every day. So we would leave work, run home, eat, come here and work for hours.
Yeah. I think we've pretty much been here every night of the week for the last 3 weeks.
You guys should be really saved.
I mean, basically, yeah.
We're feeling pretty holy.
We are dripping right now.
Another thing we added this year was 3 and 4-year-olds. Well, we had 4-year-olds last year, but we added a 3 and 4-year-olds section. We wanted the 4-year-olds kind of, after a while they kind of space out and get bored and with the older kids. So we wanted to trial 3 and 4-year-olds together. So that was Sister Mendoza was over that and did a wonderful job. I think by the end of the week they were ready.
No rest for the weary. Half of these people that we're mentioning are back teaching Sunday school this morning.
Yeah,
so.
they're back
Yeah,
at it.
at 500 cumulative hours at $20 an hour, it's a $10,000 cumulative investment that's made. That's pretty awesome. If you think about it, if you think about it quantitatively.
I love how the Preisers, I mean, we see them here in church, and you don't hear hardly anything from Angela. She's very, very quiet. So during their class, the one night that I was there, which was, I can't remember, it was Monday. Sorry.
Froggy.
Sorry.
I don't know what you're going to say, so I can't finish it for you.
That's all right.
The one night that you were there on Monday.
The night that they were in a boat. I don't know which, Tuesday night. Yep. They must have been very, very loud because she walked out and she said, I was sitting in the nursery with Cindy and she said, have you been out here the whole time? She was so nervous that I had heard her. But it's like they take on this whole new character when they get in there. And I love that because they're just, I know for the kids, it's so important. I love that.
Yeah, so Paul was a prisoner on the ship, and he had chains and everything on him. Oh. And she kept telling him that he had to be quiet and he wasn't allowed to talk. So she was probably nervous that you thought she was talking to a child instead of her husband.
I said, keep your mouth quiet.
Oh, that's why she was nervous. Yeah, that's probably. I love it. Well, what are some of the most difficult parts of VBS? I mean, I know we talked about some of the challenges of just the time and whatever, but what are some of the most difficult aspects? I know Audrey came home with a few of those after dealing with some of the children.
Oh, well.
And then children's ministry in general. We'll just kind of tie that all together.
Yeah, so I think some of the difficulties, so specifically from this week, we had so lots of fun stuff that happened. So regular stuff. I mean, we were dealing with kids, right? We had a couple of boo-boos, a couple of Band-Aids and cold packs that we had to get out. So that's the fun stuff we had to watch.
It is nice to have nurses on staff.
It is, yeah.
Multiple
and
meltdowns.
She gets extra pay for that, so she's good. And then sweet Audrey, she had a runner in her group. So I think we had a couple. I think in general, we had 2 or 3 runners this week. But Audrey had the fastest of the runners. So there's just stuff like that we deal with. But even though we were here for 2.5 hours, it seems like it was very fast the entire time. It doesn't feel like we were here or that it was that long each night. But still, at the end of it, so my job this week was the quote unquote spiritual side of it. But man, on the wrap up part each night. So, but by that time, a lot of these kids are about done, and they've been outside in the heat. They've had their snack. They've done everything. They've prayed and cried back in Bible study, and they were pretty much exhausted by the time they came in here. So there's some challenges that go along with that. And then this week, the other challenge was we had a lot of sickness that floated around this week too. So we had a lot of kids that were here Monday or Tuesday and then didn't come back.
Significant medical situation on Friday.
Yeah, we had a pretty major medical condition on Friday evening, and that kind of derailed us a little bit. But man, all the kids joined in and prayed for that situation. And
something I learned this week. Something I learned this week is boys scream louder and higher than girls.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree.
Holy cow.
I have it on video.
Oh, man. I'm like, they were like Jesus. Like that.
Yeah, jumping on the top of a chair and screaming. I'm like, hey, y'all better be doing this on Sunday too, because better be getting up there and yelling Jesus. Let's go.
Here's a little testimony. It says, a little story. The last time my nephews came to visit here, after going home, the 5-year-old told his mom he wanted to come back to Lifeway on Fridays because he wanted to be involved in youth. We said he was too little to go to youth all the time, but he has so enjoyed what he has seen and felt here. He says when he is older, he wants to work with the youth. It has made an impact on my sister and brother-in-law that they are going to church more and striving for better because of their boys. It's a great story. I have another one, but as soon as I'll get it here. We are hearing about the effects of entertainment and electronic devices. How is it changing the way children think and process information? their attention span. Have you had to change the way things are done in Sunday school? I mean, I remember back to the flannel graph boards, and that kept our attention, or we would act things out, and that would keep. Have you noticed a difference now in how you have to do Sunday school? Or
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, same with me. I mean, when I was a kid, we had the flannel graphs and all that kind of fun stuff. But I hear that that's making a resurgence, that flannel graphs are coming back, and they're taking their mind away from the thing that they're used to. So right now, the curriculum that we use for Sunday school, it's by Pentecostal Publishing House that we use, and so they have a video element every week, and then there's some multimedia things that go in there as well. And man, it's sad, but you know, I'm probably the same way, but we've become so conditioned to look at a screen versus using our imaginations. So sometimes the kids really have to see something in order for it to click. But one of my favorite things to do in Sunday school when I teach, or if we're doing Super Church, is pretty much every time I have the kids, I said, all right, let's pull out our imagination hats, and I have them put on a little imagination hat and turn the knobs and hit the buttons, just stuff like that, just to try to make them use their imagination more. But yeah, we've become so reliant and dependent on screens that some of the stuff that we have out there, we do use that because we still want to reach those kids, but yeah.
I just remember as a kid in Sunday school, it was more like a class. You sit down, you listen, and you might do a little something at the end, but most of the time you're sitting and listening, and that doesn't work. Even for the older kids, they have a hard time just sitting there. So the Borlicks that did our training have helped us a lot, incorporating the 5 senses, something in the lesson, that they can touch, something they can smell, that like they bake something that correlates with the lesson, has made a big difference.
and you feel like you have to move a little bit faster, like you can't.
Yes, their attention span, like even our stations were 20 minutes apiece, and by the end of the 20 minutes, they were ready. They were ready to go.
They were done.
Yes.
You know what's interesting is I think multisensory is so important. One of just a little sidelight. My master's degree is in Master of Arts in Christian Ministries, and the emphasis is in practical theology, practical ministry, and so on and so forth. And I think some of what you're talking about is so huge. As you know, I know you, especially when we were in the family ministry piece, talking about this idea of reinforcing. Here's what's so crazy, right? Reinforcing at church what should be being taught at home, and how important it is. And I think these are some really big. This is, you could really get on a soapbox here and say, you know what, we can't create spiritual formation in your children. Just all these great stories that we're talking about really are just simply piquing the interest and the appetite of these children. But that is so awesome with that, putting the imagination hat on, because from a theological perspective, so much of our ability to understand what God could do is based on our imagination. And the Bible even says he is able to do exceeding abundantly above what we're able to ask or think. And the word think is actually, the word in the King James Version is think, but the Greek word is actually more associated with our modern word imagine. Right? He is able to do exceeding abundantly above what we could ask or even imagine. And what's interesting is the Bible said, eye is not seen and ear is not heard, neither is it entered into the heart of man. Right? And so the thing about it is even in an entertainment-based consumer culture, where so much of what we experience is something that we consume, read it, see it on a screen or whatever. But the Bible says, this is what's amazing, eye is not seen and ear is not heard. It says, but he has revealed them unto us by his Spirit. And so this ability to cause them to imagine and think about who God is and what could God do and you can't consume that. It has to be a function of his Spirit which I personally believe sets the Pentecostal church up for a great revival in our day.
All right, I'm going to give another testimony here. This is a great one, Tyler. Thank you for sending this in. The best experiences I remember being a kid has been in church, as God blessed me with churches that always made it feel like a second home, as I believe that has been one way God has always been in my life. Church has always felt like another home with a much larger family. So I like to think of it as a tree. As God blesses the kids in the church, it spreads his love up to the parents. So my question is, what are some examples of ways to help engage children and help them feel included in our church family? Any comments on that?
Engaged and included. Yeah. So, even if we look at the youth group here recently, with the youth group moving up front and for Sunday service, I think that's been huge. I mean, with everybody being spread out and scattered and things like that. Talk about engagement from. And maybe I'm wrong here, but it's so easy to be back at your own chair with your parent, mess with your phone, sending a text to somebody else. It's so much harder to do that on the front row. A little bit more guilty sitting on the front row trying to send a text to somebody. But that's a big piece of engagement. But as far as the kids go, we have prayer with the kids every week before we go into Sunday school. We play games with them. And we try to make everybody feel like we're connected and involved. And to me, I try to spend as much time with the kids as I can. But to me, there's nothing that melts my heart more than when a kid comes up to me and says, "Hey, Brother Joe," and gives me a high five, or a little kid hugs me or whatever. That's showing that they understand who we are, but that we love them and we're invested in them to make heaven their home and connect more with their family and all those kind of things.
I was just going to say one example. There was one kid at VBS, I think he's 11, and he was a neighbor kid of a family, and he told Brother Paul, he said that he told his parents he really wanted to come back to our church because that Brother Joe guy said how much he enjoyed having me here, and Joe probably said that, not even, I'm sure you meant it, but not just, you know what I'm trying to say. They're laughing. But I think just, when we really tell kids, like, hey, I'm so happy you're here, like, I love you, I enjoy being around you, it means so much to
you
them.
have no idea. Tyler, I don't know where you were in your stage, but if you were at a foster home or whatever, and just to feel that love coming from, like, your church family, we have no idea. Some of those kids, what they go home to, what they do. Your Sunday school kids, we don't know. But man, just that little bit of love that you show to them can make an enormous, obviously, amount of difference.
Outside of my parents, this is way closer family to me than my family. Like, I don't even know my cousins. I don't even know. This is way more family for me, and I think that's huge. I was just thinking, it was interesting because when we were at Texas Bible College, we went to Brother Glass's church for a while. Remember that? And Brother Glass's church in Pasadena, Texas. It was I thought it was a mega church. It was huge. It was about the size of this church spread out in a balcony, and they used to, because of the fact that they did, so like we were talking earlier about the fact that we got 9:45, and so when we do 9:45 Lifetalks, that's when we do Sunday school and children's ministry, and then we do 11 o'clock. Well, they did something very similar. I think they had like a 9:30 and maybe 10:30 was their church time or something like that. But what they did is really interesting. I just thought about this. Once a month, they would start the service and they would say, "We want all the children to come." And what they would do is they would bring all of the children that went to Sunday school and the children of the parents that only showed up at the 11 or the worship service.
Keep preaching.
And they would get them and they would gather them and they would bring them up to the front, and their children's ministry team would sit among the kids and whatever, and they would sit all on the steps, and they would give a quick, like, 3, 4, 5-minute Bible story, and they would talk about the children, how awesome you are and how important you are, and then they would give them a little gift and say, okay, go back with your moms and dads, and then the kids would scurry off back into the seats. And I wonder if that may have been in that, I didn't know enough about their church structure or what they experienced, but I wonder if that was a way that they were bringing in even some of the guests that only came for the worship service. I wonder if they were actually engaging them so that next week the kids would go, can I go to Sunday school next week?
What are some of the victories that you have seen in your time as children's ministry directors?
Man, there's so many cool things. So we've seen several kids get the Holy Ghost in different events and VBS and things like that over the years. But I think one of the meaningful things. I mean, so Carter just left Sunday school, so that's sad. We only have one left now. So, but seeing our kids grow in Sunday school has been really great too. But I mean, some of the other victories are just the people that right now we have tons of volunteers and people that have asked to help in Sunday school. So knowing that there's people that have a heart for people's children, that's awesome. I mean, it kind of feels like back in the day. I mean, not necessarily arm twisting, but we really had to push hard to get people to go back there and help. And there was some fear of what if these kids hate me and stuff like that. But I mean, that's huge. Right now I actually have people sitting on the bench right now that are waiting for a position to open up. And I mean, that's awesome. Like to know that there's that many people that just really want to be involved with those kids. Do you have another victory that you want to share? I mean, there's so many of them.
You're good.
I mean, the one big victory too is Rebecca joining Sunday school. That was big. She'll tell you that she was.
That actually is a huge victory.
Tell us about that, Rebecca. Yeah. Tell us your story.
Well, I love kids. Let me start by saying that. I have my own. I don't know. It made me nervous. I felt like if I went and started, like I was going to get trapped back there and not be able to get out. So Joe would ask me forever, do you want to come teach with me? And I would just, say no. But it was a God thing, honestly. So my story, I was more on the praise team, involved in music, and I just started I don't know, I just kind of wasn't wanting to do that anymore. I didn't know why. And then I just, God laid that on my heart, children's ministry,
and laid it on your heart big.
Laid it on my heart big. Yeah.
I gotcha. I was the same way with lead, so I understand. All right, so we talked a little bit about some of your victories, and you did mention all the volunteers. So let's talk about your staff. I don't know if everybody here knows who your teachers are and a little bit of your volunteers. Can you explain a little bit about that and tell us about your staff?
Oh, that's probably a Rebecca question as far as my brain doesn't work that great all the time. But we so the Sunday school classes that we have, so we have ages 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6, 7, and 8 is a class, then 9, 10, and 11 is a class. So we have 4 classes, then obviously the nursery is back there as well. So each of the classes has at least 2 teachers. Sometimes the classes have 3. Do you want to go over who's who?
Sure. So the toddler class is Sister Donna and Tiffany. And
how long have they been in children's ministry?
I don't know.
Longer than we've been alive.
As long as I have been.
Seriously.
It's been as long as I've been at Lifeway. They've been the teachers for that class. So, and
then we have Tammy.
Yeah, and Tammy helps in that class as well. And then the 5. I'm getting confused now too. The 4 and 5-year-old class, Katie, Sister Katie, the Preisers are in there as well, and then Adriana has been helping, and also Sarah Bucky has been helping in that class. So we have, and we float them around as needed. Our floaters are wonderful. If I text them the night before and say, hey, can you help out another class, they're always really happy to do that. Yeah. And then our 6, 7, 8-year-old class is John and Autumn Preiser, which they've been in children's ministry as long as I can remember. And then Laura Mendoza is the helper in there as well. And then our 9, 10, and 11 is Sister Rose and Sister Preiser and Carice.
What's your biggest class?
Probably
It changes all the time.
It does change. I think the 9, 10, 11 is still the biggest.
Yeah, I think it is right now, yeah.
It's funny how our church kind of goes through these transitions, and it changes.
And it's really interesting, too. Sometimes just, you know how parents are, and they every now and then we'll go through a season where it's all boys, and then the next it's all girls. So we have one class right now, so the 4 and 5-year-old class, all girls right now, but it'll end up being all boys in a couple of months, but it just changes like that, and it's weird how that works out, but yeah, it's funny.
Okay, one last question that I have is, what do you wish parents knew about children's ministry and about framing their children to live in victory in their life?
So I think the biggest thing is just that we, I mean, the first and foremost thing is that we love your kids, and we want nothing but success for your kids with God, and that they find out exactly who Jesus is to them in their lives. I think that's the most important thing. But the thing that hopefully everybody understands by now is that Sunday school is an hour. And we teach a Bible lesson. They usually have a snack each week. There's different activities and things like that. But there's so much life that's lived outside of that 1 hour that we have the kids each week. So know that we pump as much of an experience with God as we can with them into that hour. But understand that there's a lot of stuff that has to happen at home as well. So we do everything we can, but we have kids that come up to us and ask us questions, and will you pray for me about this? This happened at home, or I have a friend that's sick, or my mom is sick, or my cat died, stuff like that. But we have kids that come to us all the time, and there's sometimes that kids will come to us with confidential information that obviously just to let parents know that if that ever happens, that only stays with us, that isn't sent out in the church newsletter or anything like that. But the whole story here is that we love your kids, and we appreciate you bringing them to Sunday school, and know that we have we have the heart of Jesus with every discussion that we have with your child. And when I mentioned if your kid comes to us with something, if it's something that is serious, obviously we would come back to you. If it's hey, my dad emptied out our checking account last night, I mean, whatever. Yeah, it's all good. But usually it's just silly, funny stuff. But and my son Grayson says some of the most ridiculous things ever. So, as a pastor told us a long time ago, as long as I forget how the saying goes.
You don't believe everything they say will happen in Sunday school.
Yeah. If you don't believe everything that they say happened in Sunday school, we won't believe everything they say that happens at home. So,
Amen.
There you go. That's how that saying goes. But Rebecca?
What about as your child faces the challenges of teen years? The importance of what's happening now.
Yeah, so I think Sunday school just sets a foundation for kids. So, they're a sponge at the ages they are now. So just having that foundation as early as 2 years old, when they come consistently every week, that's setting up an awesome foundation for when they're a teenager, adult.
And we've added a nursery right now for our second service, which we didn't have before. We did, but not up to age 3. So now we have it up to age 3. So as soon as service begins and once the music is, I think our first song set, they're back there. So now we have that opportunity for our children as well. But I think what a difference it would have been for you even, and we can look at it as this, as if your parents would have been more involved. I mean, because you and your brother were so hungry and went to church, and that did give you a foundation, but how much sooner? I mean, could you?
It took a miracle.
And it took a miracle.
It took a miracle, and it doesn't have to take a miracle. God will
Right.
work a miracle if He has to, but it shouldn't always take a miracle. And I think this thing about as children are learning and they're learning about God, and I think that sets up parents at that age. I think you've done some things to be able to give your children to take home. Right, so that the parents can
real quick, I'll throw a plug in there. Is that so in the fall curriculum, which is coming around the corner here pretty soon, but there is a family devotion that's available for that. So we had quite a few families that did that this last year, but it's a 365-day devotion, and it matches up exactly with what the lesson was for that week. So it's a great way to have an open discussion with your kid about what they learned in Sunday school. And there's a different devotion each night, Sunday through Saturday. So it's a 7-day devotion each week, and it goes into each day. So there's one day that Rebecca's favorite day of the devotion is, I think it's on Tuesday night, where you get to make up a song, which in our house always ends up being a rap for some reason. But
Rebecca,
she's such a rapper.
Yeah, or something super hill jack too. So one or the other. But yeah, so the devotion is a super awesome way that you can connect with your kid, all the way from a 2-year-old that's in the infant or not nursery class. So all the way from a 2-year-old to an 11-year-old. That you can know exactly what we talked about that week and be able to reinforce that and again, have that discussion every day.
So
So how can parents partake of this?
Yeah, so as soon as we find out when it's available, we'll get that out to everybody in Sunday school. I think last year it was like $20 a book, and then just one book per family. You don't need one for each kid. And then when we just read it, and so the kids will volunteer, and Grayson is more of a reader now than he was at the beginning. Thank you, lead. And Grayson loves to jump in there and read every now and then too, and he has to tap me on some boards every now and then. But a great way for you to spend some good family time. I definitely recommend that that's a family activity, not just one parent or the other, but grab the whole family. And yeah, it's pretty great.
The devotionals made a big difference versus, because they come home with a paper, and a lot of parents,
true.
I mean,
They look at the paper.
The paper sits on the counter, it ends up in the trash.
It's
And
pretty,
I'm
yeah. It's
guilty
either
of it.
refrigerator or trash.
Yeah.
It depends on how good the drawing was
Yeah.
that week.
But the devotional books seem, it really makes a big difference. My kids ask, what are we doing devotional? What time are we doing devotional?
See, that's so cool, man. And I'm gonna tell you something. I read something in preparation for this morning, and it was interesting because in this survey they asked parents about engaging your children, and the question was, do you feel like you've been trained to disciple and spiritually develop your children? And 79% of respondents said, no, I do not feel like I've been trained to be able to do some of these things. So what might be cool is when the fall curriculum starts coming in, what might be cool is to take a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night or whatever and actually take 10, 15 minutes and go through and say, okay, so this is the way the lesson's going to go during Sunday school. This is the devotion. This is how it connects. And then this is how you would do Monday night, and this is how you do Tuesday night, and walk them through so that you actually have a formal training time for parents to feel like, okay, I know what to do. I can do this.
You can do it. It's easy.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We have enjoyed having our children's ministry directors and hearing about VBS and the wonderful time that is. It's always so much fun. And Sunday school, what an important part of our church. Children are such an important part of our church, and we want everyone to know that. This couple right here truly loves your children. Truly loves your children. All right, thank you. And we are done with Life Talks. You have a few minutes to fellowship, grab a donut, grab some coffee, and grab your children. All right, we'll see you back here.
God bless you.